Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV, and there's no Joe Healy voice popping in right there in the usual spot. Joe is off this week on some work business, so we had to go to the bench and really just the top sixth man in the game. I believe this is your second podcast of the day, kind of filling in already. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, for appearance number 43, Ralph Amsden is going to be co-hosting. Ralph, always an absolute pleasure to have you join the show. How are you?
I'm very excited. I am not Joe Healy, but I did 4 sets of 25 push-ups today just to get in his headspace and make this an easy transition for your listeners. So let's get to it.
Yeah, it's the news always breaks on the day that we record. Of course, the Big 12. I'm kind of say we're mixing up those conferences for years to come. The Big 12 schedule has dropped, so we're going to break that down a little bit and kind of maybe tip a cap. For me, it's a Joe's absence. I'm just getting back from a trip to Dallas, so bringing some of that Texas swagger to this episode where we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, can he get away with being as pro-Texas as he is now that there are several Texas teams in the conference that Arizona State is in? Feels like a conflict of interest. We'll let viewers and listeners decide.
Yeah, I will say, though, I mean, I had been to Lubbock, covered the game in 2017. First time to Dallas. It was interesting. It was rainy. I like that, being a native Arizona. And you ever been to Dallas, Ralph?
I have.
Oh.
How did you like it before I get into my one time in Dallas?
It was okay. The drivers were terrifying, and I know that might be cliche, but like legitimately, like not quite like Rome, Italy level terrifying, but like horrific. Didn't get to explore as much as we wanted. Went out there for girlfriend's father's retirement, so it was kind of a lot of family stuff. So just got a little taste, little soupçon of Dallas.
Okay. Any downtown stuff? Or are we in the outskirts?
Outskirts, like kind of I don't know like where on the map, but like we were kind of near Plano. I guess that's
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay. So I've been to Dallas once. It was to cover the Sean Aguano coached Chandler Wolves in the
Ooh.
Geico Bowl against Valdosta, Georgia. I think they were like the Georgia 7A state champion or something like that. Jacob Conover at quarterback. I think maybe DeCarlos Brooks, early DeCarlos Brooks on that team. Took a red eye to Dallas. Got there at about 5:15 in the morning. Rented a car and had never seen Dallas before. So I drove downtown to find a breakfast spot. And I found a place that it wasn't opening yet, but there were people inside and they saw me standing outside. They invited me in. They invited me to sit at the bar. So I'm in this bar in downtown Dallas, and the manager of the place, could have been the owner, I'm not sure, but he had laid out several bowls of grits. And I've seen my cousin Vinny, but my experience with grits up to that point, very limited. And he said, we're trying out some new menu items. Do you want to do us a solid and try them? And I was like, this is like a eat, pray, love moment. Like I'm in Dallas. It's 5:45 in the morning. I'm sitting at a bar counter and I get to sample, all these grits. And he's like, all right, just be careful with them. They're like whiskey infused or whatever. And I was like, yeah, cool. And so, they had like a cheddar whiskey grits, and then they had like a honey maple rum grits, and they're all like set out. I take a few bites of each, and about like 10 minutes in, I'm like, I feel strange. And I had been up for 24 hours. I flew red eye, hadn't eaten. And like by about 6:15 a.m. in a city I've never been to, alone in a restaurant, am destroyed. And it came on so fast. It was horrifying. I was sloppy. I was apologetic. I gave the bar manager my car keys, and he took my rental car and he parked it out behind the restaurant in the employee parking.
Aww.
And he kept my keys, and I went and I slept in my car for like 4.5 hours. So I wake up, it's 11 in the morning. I'm still drunk.
How much of the boozy grits did we consume here?
Dude, like 2.5 bowls. It was gluttonous. It wasn't slow. It was gross. It was disgusting, and this isn't like a lightweight behavior at all. And he's like, "Oh, maybe we went a little heavy there," and I'm like, "I have no excuse. I'm so embarrassed." But I sleep for 4.5 hours in a rental car behind this bar. I wake up and I am still not feeling so good. So I go in and I'm like, "I'm not okay to drive yet. I really appreciate you having my keys. How much longer are you going to be here?" He said, "I'm here till we close." That's like 3 p.m. So I was like, "What is there to do? Because I'm done sleeping. I'm just tipsy." And he said, "You can go on the JFK assassination tour."
I've heard good things. It was recommended
Well,
to me.
I was drunk in the book depository and in every part of the tour, like barely able to like process any information.
This is your own personal episode of Drunk History.
Oh, yeah, not great. And then so we go to the little gift shop museum, and there's a guy standing outside, and he's like, "Do you want to know the real story?"
Do I?
And recruiting reporter. I'm like, "Absolutely." And yeah, so he like takes me out to where like the X is painted on the street, and he's talking about the CIA and like the mafia or something like that. He probably talks for 40 straight minutes, and I hear maybe 10 words, and I'm struggling, and I'm starting to come to toward the end of it. And then when we get done talking, he's like, "Cool, that'll be $20." I tipped this man $20 for lying to me and or giving me the absolute truth about JFK's assassination. And then I went back to the restaurant, had more food on the house that was not alcohol infused.
There you go.
Drove to Frisco, watched Chandler beat the living hell out of this team, interviewed all the players, talked with Sean Aguano, and then was back on a plane that night. So I spent one day in Dallas, was probably the most bizarre day I've ever had. Not really a drinker. It's the drunkest I've ever been in my life, ever. And it was in a city I'd never been to before. And I took the JFK tour, and I got to tell you, there's some fishy stuff going on. Someone should look into all that, according to a man on the street.
Yeah. We never did get the JFK sequel from Stone, so maybe you want to step up with the screenplay. These things can only happen to you, Ralph. Only.
See, you say that, but it's never happened to me before, and it never happened since. It felt very much like a one-off.
Well, there's that. Then there's the hitting the monster rabbit on the drive. Like just your life is just the series of wonderfully. Just like we should get like Wes Anderson to just like do like a biopic on you, just the vignettes of just like.
Oh man, yeah, I've never seen a Wes Anderson movie, but I've heard they're delightful. And
so delightful. The Life Aquatic, #1 in my personal book. I know it's a little against the grain for those Wes heads out there, or whatever they call themselves. I don't know.
We're deep in the weeds on this ASU football podcast.
Later on, Brady White, the former ASU quarterback, turned record-setting quarterback at Memphis, who's now back in Tempe, part of Kenny Dillingham's staff, coaching the wide receivers. He's had a chance to catch up with him. Really great conversation that you'll hear at the end. We will, of course, dive into the 2024 schedule. But, Ralph, let's dive into just a couple of news items since our last episode that Joe and I failed to tackle. Now, of course, in the last episode, we kind of got the tail end of the first wave, I guess, of the kind of U of A drama down there, and obviously ASU fans have a lot of opinions about what happened there. Adam Green of Wildcat Radio 2.0 came on and gave us the Tucson perspective, but as somebody who covered this conference so well here with Rivals, Devil's Digest, and of course most recently with the Pac-12 Apostles podcast, which, by the way, looking forward to the college football Apostles podcast, and I like
that makes one of us.
I do appreciate that my take was the last take on the last episode of Pac-12 Apostles.
I appreciate you and 5 other people for listening for 4.5 years. We worked very, very hard on it to have our small group of people who hate Georgia's food takes. So I really, really appreciate it.
And I too, just like when he was going on that response and that preamble of self-reflection or whatever, I knew exactly where that was going.
Of course he did. He's not going to change his mind on a thing. That's not who he is. Here's what I'll tell you. It is within every University of Arizona fan's right to be optimistic. And what I heard a lot of before Jedd Fisch left for Washington was that one issue is not going to affect the other. Heard it a lot, read it a lot, had a lot of conversations about it, never believed that to be true. And here we are. This is not, and I told you so. The financial issues at University of Arizona permeate all levels. It's why there's a hiring freeze. It's why, and I would love for somebody in the know to address this very specific issue. It's why there was an agreed upon contract between Jedd Fisch and the University of Arizona that remained unsigned. Right? It's why your athletic director is no longer employed. It's why it's in part, not fully, why there are student protests to have the president removed. It's why you were able to raise so much money behind closed doors to retain Jedd Fisch, only to turn around and sign Brent Barnes for the same money that Jedd Fisch was making pre-extension, with a much better buyout, by the way. There are financial issues permeating every level of University of Arizona. Now, does that make it a worse place to the level of defensiveness? I'm trying to get to the root of where it comes from. I do believe when it comes to University of Arizona, there is this permeating attitude that like nobody is allowed to hate us but us. And I respect the territorial nature of those half participants in the Territorial Cup. I get it. I would say that the difference between Arizona and Arizona State fans over the last couple of years have been that if an Arizona State raises the issue of University of Arizona's financial issues, they're like, nuh-uh, it's not $22.1 billion. It's $22.099999 billion. So get your facts right. Like that has very much been the attitude that they have presented. Like, you're not allowed to criticize us unless you have all your ducks in a row. And if you do have your ducks in a row, who the hell are you anyway? Are you a duck? Like, that's not a wildcat. Go away. And I think when it comes to University of Arizona's issues, especially post the 2021 season, things were pretty tense there for a minute. So don't have a lot of room to talk on this. But come January 2022 and on, University of Arizona fans could be like, I heard Ray Anderson kicked a baby. And we'd be in the background like, I think it was 2 babies. Might have been a third. Like it, I think that they if they ever come to terms with the fact that like things are bad there and there are going to be far-reaching effects in all areas of academics, support staff, administration, recruitment, marketing, what you're able to do with your sports programs, who you're able to bring in as sports staff, until they get to the point where they're able to just reconcile that, realize it had nothing to do with them as people. They didn't cause it. These are problems above their head that a lot of them stem from COVID, right? So, once they come around to that, then I think we might be able to have a good cry about it together, about the state of both universities. But as far as it stands right now, I don't feel like they're in a sense of denial, but they're certainly not being completely honest with themselves as to the far-reaching nature of the financial issues that they are in. It is costing people their jobs. It is costing them their ability to retain people, and they've galvanized over this, and the support for the athletic programs has skyrocketed. I do think that that's a crappy reason to galvanize, but any reason is a good reason when it ultimately helps you. And retaining Noah Fafita and Teteroya McMillan and Raymond Polito, keeping all these guys in the building, that's huge. And maybe that's where some of that money that was raised for Jedd ultimately was spent. But as a college football fan, I don't want to see a whole team break apart just because somebody else had got life-changing money. I'm happy all those people stayed back, and it gives Arizona State a real opportunity at the end of the season to say, no excuses for us, no excuses for you. Let's run it back in Tucson, see what happens. Right? I want that. But I will say that I have listened to a lot of people talk about this that are on the University of Arizona end, and I empathize with you, but it is not good. And no amount of beating around the bush or policing details is ever going to get me convinced that firing your athletic director and the athletic departments being on a hiring freeze is actually like a good thing. It's not.
Yeah, and so that was the kind of the big thing, because obviously there's a, I would say, not insignificant portion of the ASU fan base who enjoys hating U of A probably more than they enjoy loving the Sun Devils. And
Sure.
so obviously when this was kind of coming down, and just, we saw the fish departure becoming more and more of an actual reality, and just, the speculation of who he'd take with, we saw, perhaps not so much the current roster, but a lot of the recruiting, the recent signees and recruits are now, a lot of them are heading up north. Generally speaking, this from the biggest thing I've seen from ASU fans, what do you think this potentially could mean for ASU in terms of just, hurting the rival and maybe helping ASU close that gap or getting them back ahead?
If you're an ASU fan and you believe that Arizona is in some way a recruiting rival, let's say for prospects in Arizona, if you're one of the people that believes that that should be a priority, what you need to understand is that Jedfish grassroots built up a really impressive operation over the last 3 years, like really put in a ton of work. Now, was it all a grift to impress his next suitor? Who cares? He did it. You benefited from it. ASU is behind on that. It is always helpful when you're behind for the leader to stumble. And they didn't just stumble, like they forgot to jump, hit the hurdle. They're missing teeth on the ground, and we get to keep chugging along until Brent Barnes establishes the operation that he's going to move forward with. He's got good coaches on his staff. Danny Gonzalez is great. Alonzo Carter is great.
Yeah, so a quick aside, because I've seen this is something that really actually bothered me about that, and that's something we haven't talked about on the show here yet.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Gonzalez, obviously, I think you and I both hold him in high regard from his time here, both as a coach, as a man, as a family man. Just to see the fan base, just like, I think I saw some another publication out there, had a graphic with his face and like traitor and some. And some other people just like really going in on him, and just like for taking it like a job. Like, unfortunately, things didn't work at his alma mater. But there was the percentage, there was a lot more of that than I would have liked to have seen. Obviously, there's always going to be some people with some bad takes, but there just seemed to be, given what Danny did during his time in Tempe and the quality of person that he was, it just seemed really unfair.
Yeah, Danny Gonzalez is the best. It like took my breath away when I saw, I don't know, it was Pete Damel. I don't know who put it out there, but it like, I think it was Pete Damel. It shocked me. I mean, it could have been any name on earth that was sitting at home not working right now, and I would have been like, okay. Short of Todd Graham and Danny Gonzalez, I don't really know of any assistant. And it's funny because it came on the heels of Bobby Wade getting a position coach job with the University of Arizona. And I like, my reaction to Bobby Wade getting the job is like, well, first of all, Bobby Wade is the best Arizona high school football player I've ever seen. That's home for him. He worked hard. He bridged the gap for ASU.
Good dude.
He stuck around. He's a good dude. I'm very happy for him. Go home, do your thing.
Yeah, he even he was a position coach here, then got demoted, but still stuck around, putting in the work as an assistant after being a position coach prior to that.
Yeah, and so my attitude on on that was like, oh, good for him, good for Bobby Wade. And then a couple days later, the Danny Gonzalez news comes out, and I'm looking at my phone like, is it time to start pouring more liquor in my grits? Like, this was it was really, really hard to take. Now, the idea of getting mad at him for taking a job when he was unemployed, I don't fully understand it. I mean, it really felt like somebody was a very good employee at Circle K. They left for QT. They were there for 4 years. They got fired. 7-Eleven is hiring. Circle K is not hiring. 7-Eleven gives this man a job, and his old manager at Circle K is like, you can't do that. Like, you don't have the right. Like, we don't own these people. He's, you got to understand, he was probably making about as much as he would have continued to make as Arizona State's defensive coordinator as the head coach of New Mexico.
Yeah.
Hey, man, he got a family, and he's a football coach. And Brent Brennan seems like a really cool guy to work for. And it's not even like it's it's like a double demotion. I mean, I saw people come out and be like, "Well, he wasn't good anyway." What? Like he made San Diego State an absolute menace, and then he gave us our best defense since 2012.
Yeah.
Like there's numbers and
People
everything.
wanted him to be the head coach and waiting.
They did, and he's a cool guy, and he's got a cool family, and I wish him nothing but the best. I hope those linebackers play well in 11 games, and I hope they stink in the 12th. And it's that simple to me. But I will tell you, just it shocked me. I mean, I was maybe 5-6 seconds just not able to get a breath out, like. Because he meant a lot to the ASU community, and he pushed all the right buttons.
The anti-200, the anti-U of A rhetoric, like he extended that. Like he was at baseball games with that. Like he became a part of the Sun Devil community.
Yeah, and I mean, and they're short on money, and this is the way I'm choosing to think about it. They're short on money, and he's taken some of it. This is Ocean's 11. If they can have a University of Arizona alum, and I don't know if in Antonio Pierce's 8 months at U of A he graduated, but if they can have a University of Arizona alum out here ruining our lives, we can certainly have somebody that we hold in high esteem out there wrecking stuff for them. So
the very long game double agent infiltration.
Yeah, I don't think it's in him though. I think the linebackers are going to be awesome. I hate that he's there. I really do.
Oh, wild sub. Yeah, I saw that. And I know that was like a kind of a tangent, but to see the number of Sun Devil fans just throwing heat his way was, I thought, totally and like just totally unjustified, a lot, and very ridiculous.
I respect people who are consistent. They have their principles and they live by it, but like you're not John Wick and nobody killed your puppy, right? Like this is not as serious as that. This is a position coach job for an unemployed man, and you're fine. Like you're set. You didn't need him. He didn't choose them over you. The head coach he worked for isn't even here anymore. Not that he would probably work for him again, but like this is not a great offense, and you'll be able to go on with your life. I guarantee you, if something opens up at Arizona State, those same fans will be like, maybe we can get Danny Gonzalez in here, which to me would be a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Speaking of that coach that he used to work for, Herm Edwards, now that the Super Bowl matchup is set and the Valley's own Brock Purdy is heading to the Super Bowl. And I think one of the local law firms out here, like, go Brock Purdy billboards around here, that's pissing off a lot of Cardinals fans, which, jeez.
I love it. Yeah. I love that they did the billboards, and I love that people got mad about it. I think it's equally commendable.
It's great. So Herm Edwards on ESPN, where he is now returned to his analyst role, has had some thoughts, as documented by some folks. Most notably, Tim Ring's tweet was probably the one that got the most traction, in which Herm said that he was a fan of Purdy and recruited him, and then what he said that he had a great career at Iowa. Again, that Herm's attention to detail on full display. Ralph, as somebody who is extremely plugged into the local recruiting scene, how far from accurate was Herm's assessment?
It was pretty far from the truth. I got a good giggle out of it. I know that people thought maybe like I was coming off as angry about it on Twitter. It's just not true. Yeah. I knew that he was going to make the radio rounds, and I knew he was going to lie. And I fired off a tweet a couple of days before that. It was just like, it's journalistic malpractice to not bring up the fact that nobody has ever been more wrong about Brock Purdy than Herm Edwards was in 2017. Now, that's hyperbole. Yes, that is what that is. That it's Twitter, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Herm Edwards thought that Brock Purdy was not worth a scholarship and that he was a walk-on. There's nothing wrong with walk-ons. Arizona State has a very rich history of walk-ons. I don't even know if anybody as a Sun Devil has been drafted higher in the last 30 years than Levi Jones. He's a walk-on out of Eloy Santa Cruz. I was an incoming ninth grader when Adam Archuleta walked on at Arizona State from the same high school. Trenton Bourget, love that guy. Like there's there's nothing wrong with being a walk-on, but Herm Edwards said that he knew this was the type of quarterback that Brock Purdy was going to be. Starting in a he was never the head coach of a team that played in the Super Bowl.
Nope.
His Kansas City Chiefs team, he had to give the ball to Larry Johnson 400,000 times in one season. You can see the effects of that in Larry Johnson's
poor man CTE.
Ooh, something. Gave him something. And and he was very, very well known for like not being able to manage quarterback situations outside of Chad Pennington. I think he went 2-20 in his last 22 NFL games, and that I believe he is good on TV. I believe he is very good at explaining things to lower common denominator fans, and I think he's a pleasant voice to have on when you're at getting your brake pads changed, or you're at like Sport Clips or something like that. Like, I think he's a good guy to have on TV that you don't have to like invest too much in what he has to say. And I've always felt this way. So if people think this is sour grapes, I think Herm is excellent on TV. I think that daytime TV, believe it or not, guys, daytime TV is dedicated to people who are watching TV in the daytime. Think about who that is. Is that you? If that's you, I'm sorry. But it is for daytime TV viewers. For what Danny Gonzalez was before he took the linebacker coach job at University of Arizona. That's what it's for. So, for him to make these media rounds, which, this is when he worked for ESPN, there was always a huge Super Bowl blitz, and he's going to do a ton of radio shows, and he has to talk about Brock Purdy. And I knew that the temptation was going to be there to paint this as something that it wasn't, but I was there for it. So let's recap. Brock Purdy was not recruited by Todd Graham. Todd Graham, in his final probably year and a half at Arizona State, what he was doing locally, malpractice. I mean, he was like Jake Smith's 12th offer. And his son was classmates with Jake Smith. So, like, that's the best way that I can explain that he was the 12th offer on the eventual Gatorade Player of the Year. And didn't give attention to Tyler Shuck, didn't give attention to Brock Purdy. Sports 360 AZ was covering it like crazy. There was all these people writing about it. There was public pressure to do it. Felt like Todd Graham was maybe even just like digging in his heels and being stubborn about some of the locals. Why that was, I don't know. I haven't had that conversation with him. But in November, Herm Edwards takes over, and one of the first things that is brought to his attention is you could get an easy dub. Easiest dub ever. Be the first Power 5 school to offer Brock Purdy. He had, I believe, yet to play in the state championship game his senior year. He was, at the time, I believe, the first ever 4,000, 1,000 quarterback in Arizona high school football history. So, like, this whole idea that he's always been like this meek underdog. No, he was a straight up killer. A straight up killer. And Hode Rubino, I know Devil's Digest is a sponsor of the program. I think he had kids at Perry. So he's at all these games. And he's tweeting it out like, offer Brock Purdy. I'm tweeting out, offer Brock Purdy. And it would have been a very big community relations score for like the first offer to go out to be him. And then there were people that were left over from the previous staff that knew that. When Billy Napier left and when Phil Bennett left and when Ray Anderson's design fell apart immediately, the people that were still left on staff were like, hey, easy W, Brock Purdy. And from what I understand, Al Luganbill, who wasn't officially on staff yet, Herm Edwards, they look at his film and they're like, walk on, see if a walk on. And so, and you know how they were on like physical stature, height, all that stuff. So
they wanted mandrakes.
They wanted mandrakes. Somebody owes N'Keal Harry some type of like licensing fee for that photo, by the way. They're like, I'm still looking for Mandrake. I'm like, that is a photo of N'Keal. That is a photo of N'Keal Harry. You absolutely know who Mandrake is. You are lying. So back to lying.
Were you at that press conference where they like?
Yes,
they
I was.
Yeah, I mean, we were just sitting there and then they brought out the big art. And it was like, okay, and
N'Keal with wings.
Yeah,
like pre-AI, very, very funny.
And then they had like the Mandrake helmet for the practices.
Yeah, the people on the field are clearly not Mandrake. I have not found them yet, but you can pretend to be one for the day.
Yeah.
You got to do whatever you can to motivate people. He had some funny ideas. He was entertaining. He's good for daytime TV.
Absolutely.
So he watches the film. He's like, "Nah, this isn't what we're looking for. This Brock Purdy's not Mandrake." So, so Brock Purdy's recruitment post state championship game. There are teams that need a quarterback, and he's the last one left. And if you've ever been in like an auction fantasy draft,
Yep.
where like toward the end of it, there's just people with money left over and there's like one kicker and people get into a bidding war for no reason. It felt like that to the untrained eye. To the people that followed him, we knew like, oh, the absolute diamond in the rough is still available. And so you have Oregon State, Boise State, Iowa State, Kansas, UCF, Texas A&M, and then a really weird flirtation with Alabama that happened like in between coordinators. So Nick Saban didn't actually know who Brock Purdy was and didn't understand why he was on an official at Alabama, but Alabama did recruit Brock Purdy. Nick Saban didn't, and it kind of mirrors what happened with ASU. We'll get into that in a second. But all of a sudden, all these teams want him. He's the hottest quarterback in the country, and there's rumors that Noel Mazzoni thinks that he can bring him to U of A. So the pressure mounts. There is no additional film. None. Everything that has happened in Brock Purdy's high school football career had already happened by the time they watched his film and decided he was a walk-on. So what Herm Edwards comes up with was to tell Donnie Yantis to call Brock Purdy, because Donnie Yantis had a relationship with him, and say, we will offer you if you say yes. If you don't say yes, it's not an offer. If you are open to saying yes, maybe it's an offer, but like it's not an offer unless you take it. And it wasn't Herm that made the call. Herm did no personal recruiting of his own in this. Dan Minucci, Brock's private coach all through high school, quote tweeted me when I said that like Herm missed really bad in 2017. He's like, oh, I remember. Like all of these things happened. But anyway, Herm shouldn't be getting thrown into the bus right now for something that was really a Todd Graham problem, because he would have taken Brock if he was committed. But he inserted himself. He said he recruited him. He did not. He said he knew what kind of player he was going to be. Not only did he not know, he dissuaded his own staff from offering and only went back due to public pressure. And he didn't do it himself. He had no involvement in this whatsoever. Brock Purdy said no thank you. Therefore, there is no official offer on record. It does not exist. Because it was, if you say yes, it's an offer. Well, he didn't say yes. So technically, Arizona State never recruited Brock Purdy. And that wasn't even the one that people were most interested in at the time. The one that people were furious about was Keaton Slovis, because he came back with USC and shredded Arizona State at home. And he was another one that Donnie Yantis wasn't allowed to offer by the staff. This happened on multiple occasions. Now, Herm Edwards says we ended up with Jaden Daniels. We were fine. Yes, but you said that Brock Purdy went to Iowa. He went to Iowa State. Jaden Daniels was here putting up stats like he was at Iowa under you. So like we can say in hindsight, like, yeah, Jaden Daniels was a better quarterback in college than Brock Purdy. But we can only say it as of the moment that Herm Edwards stopped being his coach. So he took credit for like 5 things that he had absolutely no hand in making better. It's funny that Tim Ring pointed it out. This is what I said. I said this once already today. So if it feels like I'm plagiarizing, take it up with Jason Shear. So we were raised by an entire generation of men who saw no problem if they caught an 8-inch trout, saying that they caught a 10-inch trout. This is the generation that raised us. Okay. I have a high tolerance for the embellishers, the people that try to make a story more interesting, the people that polish things up, right? What I don't have patience for is somebody who didn't go fishing saying that they caught a marlin. Because no, you didn't. You weren't even there. And that's it felt egregious. And I'm glad. I'm never glad when it turns into a circus of people calling Herm Edwards a liar and a snake, because then we just come off looking exactly like University of Arizona fans look in Jed Fish's mentions right now. So not a big fan of that, but like, I think you can just acknowledge like, oh, he lies a lot, and then just move on with your day and be glad that he's gone. I am so eternally grateful that he is not here, and nor is the person who thought he should be here in a position to make these decisions anymore. Because it would be really, really hard to, like, if he was employed by Arizona State, if he was still the head coach and he brought this up about Brock Purdy, that'd be a hard thing for him to have to face down. I mean, he survived his "What's a Devil" press conference, so maybe he'd survive this too. But I just wonder if he has anybody around him that's like, hey man, maybe tell the truth. Like you kind of represent, Mickey Mouse and Disney, and maybe don't lie so frequently. Because that it would be really, really cool if whoever is running your social media didn't have to like sift through the worst of the worst imaginable things that you can read just to get through their day. So like, take care of your social media manager. Maybe quit lying for a minute.
Do you ever just get the like there's reminisce about the Herm era, or not even about reminisce, but just like think back to it and just like that happened, like that those years are like weren't some weird fever dream. Like Herm Edwards was actually the head coach here for a while. It's wild.
Yeah, I will tell you that it's difficult to forget because of his prominence on television, and because Secret Time, I'm a daytime TV watcher. So I'm gonna see him.
The mask comes off.
Yeah. It's Herm Edwards is for people like me. So if you don't like me, think about that. But I I will say that like it's impossible to forget, because we haven't received notice of allegations yet. We don't have an athletic director.
Yeah, it's like 30 plus months now, like, right? This is summer of 21.
Yeah, and every single time somebody submits a new complaint to the NCAA, whether it's this Florida Jaden Rashada thing or the Tennessee Nico Iamaleava thing, I'm like, please wait your turn. We were here first. I want to know. I want to know how bad it's going to be, because Ray Anderson told me, he has deleted his Twitter account, so we can't respond to him on this. But Ray Anderson told me that he left his job having taken care of all this. So I want to see how much he took care of it.
Wild times, man. Well, it has been a rocky few years for the Son of Football program, but a new horizon is upon us. And today, the Big 12 released the 2024 schedule. So, Ralph, now we can turn a hopeful eye towards the future. Let's break down this 2024 schedule. Now, of course, the non-con we've known for a while, a few years at this point.
Yeah.
And perhaps no better person. We'll run down the schedule, and of course, as we get closer to the season, have more detailed profiles of these teams. But no better person to talk about this 2024 season opener that is going to be happening on Saturday, which is, I believe, I looked it up, the first season opener on a Saturday at home since 2018, because everything's just been like Thursday. So it's a nice change of pace. Ralph, your Wyoming Cowboys are coming to town.
Thanks, I hate it. I think I'm coming in for the game.
Hot damn, yes.
I don't know, man. My relationship with Wyoming is definitely different than my relationship with ASU. When I turn on a Wyoming game on a Saturday, I am anxious the whole time, because it's not a fun brand of football, and it's just like, please don't embarrass me, because the level it is like seeing somebody with my build on a high rise, like a trapeze, right? No net. Like, these are not the most athletic kids in the world, and they're extraordinarily well coached, and they just have a wreck-it-all mindset. And they've been more successful than they've ever been the last few years under Craig Bowl. It really has been the golden era of Wyoming football, and he retired. Jay Sawvell is taking over. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think their quarterback that might be starting for them is actually from Mesa, went to Red Mountain, so that you might have some black and red in the stands. But I don't care if they win or lose. I just don't like. I just want it to be over every time. It's an anxiety-ridden experience. I just don't want them to be embarrassed. I just want them to survive the Mountain West. I want them to be on the right side of like the 11-8 score that they're going to post. And you should know about this. You're a Steelers fan. So, with ASU, like, I want the thing to work. I want all the things to look like football, and like, people to get sacks and interceptions and run kicks back and throw beautiful spirals and have awesome running lanes. I want to admire it and have fun with it. And so, like, I feel like I'm going to be in this place of like really wanting, like, having this excitement about what Kenny Dillingham is able to do with a full off season and like a non-patchwork roster, while at the same time, like, praying for the players on the field, because they're not great not at home. Like, they're very, very good in Laramie, scary even.
Chaos team, like Texas Tech found out that the hard way last year.
Yeah, but Laramie boys in Tempe in August, like, you better keep them from going out the night before. Like, it's gonna be wild. And so, I'm nervous already. ASU should murder Wyoming. And what you have to understand that might look like is like 21-6. But like a 2-score win over a team that slows things down this much. The nice thing is Brian Ward is from that coaching tree from the North Dakota State, like, answers-based defense coaching tree. So it's not like they're going to surprise Arizona State with anything they do. But they're not going to be able to match the athleticism. They're picked over every single year in the transfer portal. Somehow they still end up competitive. I would say that it's a dangerous game, but to me, not only a guaranteed win, a guaranteed double-digit win.
Yeah, it should be interesting, because I will say that because of you, I've taken a interest in Wyoming over the years, watch a lot of CBS Sports Net games of there in the late night Mountain West type stuff, and always just like one of those kind of chaos teams that you mentioned. And just
Very
unfortunately,
much,
my Steelers have been like this under the black cloud of the Matt Canada era. It's just kind of like a real just like rock fight football. So it'll be real interesting to see exactly how a presumably healthy Sun Devil team now in year 2 under Kenny Dillingham is able to start things off and get a better read than perhaps like a NAU type of opener.
Absolutely. And you do have to be super careful. And I'm glad it's not a home and home, because yikes. Yeah. But, I have a neighbor who has a son that plays baseball at App State. He's an App State alum. And we're texting back and forth during the Wyoming game, because they're App State's up like 10 points with 8 minutes left. And he's like, your boys fought hard. And I was like, there's 8 minutes left in this game, and your App State guys have been in 7,200 feet for 52 minutes. There's no way oxygen is still getting to their brain. Like, just wait. Something weird's going to happen, I promise you. And I think Wyoming blocked a field goal, ran it back for a touchdown, like onside kicked, and then scored and won. And he texted me, he's like, you're right, it got weird. But luckily, you're not in Laramie, which is not a place where human beings should live. So it should be okay. It really should be okay. I hope it's okay.
So then we move on to the rest of the the first legs of a couple of respective home and home, starting on the next week on Saturday, the 7th. Mississippi State coming to town. I believe it's the first SEC matchup ASU's had since the A&M opener in 15. Obviously, a program that's kind of still feeling the effects of Mike Leach's untimely death.
Yeah.
Zach Arnett out as head coach. Jeff Lebby coming over from Oklahoma as their OC guy, who's pretty sought after, and I saw the names connected to a lot of jobs. obviously, that a Power 5 opponent is kind of the second year that this has happened after Oklahoma State came in last year. How do you think that the Devils are going to handle the SEC team?
I think that Mississippi State will be frisky and fun. However, even in the era in which you can immediately rebuild through the portal, what you're not always able to do is do it in your first season when you're making a dramatic shift into a new style of offense and running the type of plays that you want to run. So, and not only is that what happening in Starkville right now, but also it's the second time it's happening in 2 years because Zach Arnett inherited Mike Leach's air raid style team and decided not to run the air raid. And all of the sudden, Will Rogers went from being this like 4,000 yards a year gunslinger to, doing play action stuff and then being run first. And they were putrid.
Yeah.
And they were not built for what Zach Arnett was trying to do, but he's assuming that he's going to have the job long term. So he's starting to shape this roster, and then he gets fired. And now you have Jeff Lebby come in, and this is going to be not necessarily like spread air raid type stuff, but it's definitely going to be a much more up tempo, much more like downfield pass driven offense. But who do they have, right? And so they're going to have to learn some stuff about themselves, and that's going to be their first real contest. And that is going to be a very, very challenging game. But I give the advantage to Kenny Dillingham. This might feel like I'm being a homer, but I followed Mississippi State this year because they had to play Arizona and because it was just fascinating. Like you have an air raid team and you have the quarterback with the most passing yards in all of college football, and you're not employing that at all. It was insane to me. And to watch them struggle, it's really, really hard for me to believe that they're going to be on pace or have outpaced Arizona State. I think that's a game you should expect to win.
Yeah, so 2 winnable games right off the bat against not insignificant opposition. And of course, this is a game in week 3 that I've been, I don't want to say complaining about, but just kind of pointing out for years, just because it's just so weird. It's the first of a home and home and a remnant of the Todd Graham era. I believe, if I remember correctly, this was a series scheduled back in 2016. It could be incorrect on that. But ASU will be traveling to San Marcos, Texas, the first of back-to-back weeks in the state of Texas, to close up the non-conference slate against Texas State, which currently I don't believe has a quarterback, or at least it's some interesting management there with TJ Finley, who had a record-setting season a year ago as Texas State. Really, I believe it was pretty much the best season in program history. I don't know, it seemed like he was maybe shown the door after Jaden DeLora, the disgraced former Wildcat Cougar quarterback, was brought on board, and then it seemed like the Bobcat fans there made their voices heard, and he is now no longer with the program. Finley is, I believe, gone to Western Kentucky, leaving the Bobcats without an experienced quarterback.
Yes, a really, really confusing situation. Not sure what they're going to do. This is a team that went 8-5 last year, and they've got a first-year head coach in Gary Joe Kinney, who has one of the more fascinating stories in all of college football. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he played for Todd Graham at Tulsa.
Yeah,
and he might have even. Graham might have even helped him get on for his first coaching gig in Allen, Texas. But this is a guy this is a guy whose dad is a coach. He's probably got an incredibly bright future. He helped out at UCF. He helped out at Hawaii. I think when Todd Graham was there, and could be an important name in coaching soon, but it shouldn't be an issue now, especially without a quarterback. Don't love that it's on the road.
Pretty weird, right?
Yeah, I know you don't love it either. But this is an offense that it's almost like when they had to play, was it Cal Poly that ran like dives and triple option stuff?
Yeah.
And then you could just like not worry about having to scheme against any of that for, the rest of the time. Like he was at Incarnate Word, and they run like a crazy up tempo, throw the ball 5 million times offense, and I don't think ASU is going to see too much more of that. Though at a bare minimum, it could prepare them for what they're about to see the following week. Joey McGuire is not Cliff Kingsbury, but they do throw a lot. So I don't know. I don't. It's one of those scary games to me, especially if you just finished getting blanked by Fresno. Type of game you don't want to play. You just want to get into the games that count. You really can only lose, but maybe it builds up your confidence. Maybe it gets you used to playing on the road. Maybe it helps you get a firmer grip on what you need to do at the quarterback position. Maybe some good can come of it, but I don't love this game. It should be a big ASU win, but after the season that we just came off of, pointing to anything and saying win feels like a fool's errand.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, the ASU, I think, at that point of the season should be 2-1, a chance 3-0 if we're seeing some things that are trending and projecting well. We'll see, but yeah, I mean, those games, even just like going back to like the 2014 New Mexico road trip, which is like a little really like kind of like the reverse of the bye game type thing. Like, why are we here? But that, as you mentioned, that's going to prepare ASU to do for the first of 2 games on the road, as they will open up the Big 12 conference play for the first time the following week as they head back to Lubbock for the first time since 2017, facing Joey McGuire's Texas Tech squad. And I know a lot of, it's an interesting program with this, had some pretty successes in terms of talent acquisition, but I'm sure all ASU fans' eyes are going to be on their new tight end, Jalen Conyers.
Yeah. I wonder, given what happened with Danny Gonzalez, I wonder what the reception is going to be toward watching, Jalen Conyers play in a Texas Tech uniform. Joe McGuire was equally as snake bit at quarterback last year as Arizona State was. I'm sure he's looking forward to having some type of stability. The thing about Texas Tech is their checks clear. That's not an insult. Louisville, the checks clear, right? Like the schools where the checks clear are the places that if that's what you're into, you want to be. And I think that Texas Tech has done a really good job. Joe McGuire is already one of the best recruiters in the country, but to unleash him with resources on the transfer portal, I anticipate this being a pretty scary team. And I know that people are going to be all over Utah and Arizona as Big 12 favorites, right? And then you're going to have your people who are just sort of like riding on the Dion hype. They're going to be very much better, but I don't think they're quite there yet. If there was one team to bet on that's in the current Big 12 on having a really, really big year, I think it's Texas Tech. So huge test, fun test.
Yeah.
For the people who listen to this podcast, I feel like a lot of them are travelers. If you didn't go to the Texas Tech game last time around, you got to go.
It's a fun environment when there's not a tornado delay like the 2017. At least it was a nice press box to chill in for while we're waiting out that storm.
Very. And again, just kind of reminds me of Laramie in that it's just school and kind of nothing, tumbleweeds for forever. But they love their football, and Todd Graham made sure that every single ASU player was standing at attention so that they could take in the environment, the flyover. To watch him soak it in, I think, was a really, really cool experience because Texas Tech was one of the schools that he was trying to make ASU into. As far as just having that game day environment and the hype surrounding it, I think the Big 12 is going to be really, really good for ASU, especially the casuals is an insult to the kids these days. So we will say, especially the fans with good work-life balance, if they get to experience Big 12 football, I think it'll be a lot more enticing for them to be involved than going to LA schools or to the Bay Area, where the town isn't on display and where the fans of that town aren't looking to impress you, right? They want to beat you, but they also want you to have a good time because their city matters to them. That's not a UCLA fan. That's not a USC fan. You're going to find that in the Big 12. You're going to find it in spades. And so if you want a taste of that very first one, I did the drive in 11 hours. I think I saw Billy the Kid's grave along the way. It's doable. You can make a little road trip out of it.
Southwest does fly to Lubbock, though.
It is true. It is true, and I've heard good things about their airport. However, it will just give you a taste of what the future is for Arizona State, and I think it will really make you want to go back home to Tempe and be an ambassador of Tempe. I really do. I think that that's going to be the positive effect of the time in the Big 12.
They have a pretty cool horse and Masked Rider, and any ASU fans who have had that tortilla toss itch scratching at them for a while, you get to indulge. I believe that they still allow that out in Lubbock. That game at Texas Tech will precede the first of 2 bye weeks for the Sun Devils. They will be idle on the weekend of the 28th. Back in action at home on the 5th.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you? Can I stop you? Can I stop you?
Absolutely.
You are a worldly man.
Trying to be.
A traveler. Likes to experience new things. When I saw the 2 bye weeks, I was like, oh, Brad might get a vacation. You trying to build something in now that the schedule's out?
It has been discussed, so we're going to see in about April, whenever the NFL, maybe there's a Steelers game, because the Steelers do have 2 games. They're coming back to Vegas and Denver, so maybe ideally that'll fall on one of those 2 weekends, or
they're going to play in Charlotte. I got a place for you.
Oh.
I believe so, anyway.
All right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so like that, I was like, ooh, two bye week. When was the last time there was 2?
I don't know, but I love it. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, we're so lucky. And then I looked and everyone had it. And I was just thinking back to when University of Arizona played 13 straight weeks with Rich Rod with no bye at all.
Yeah, because they had like the week 1 bye or something like that, or some weirdness.
I was like, man, is this part of our deal?
I thought that like 2 bye weeks usually, like if you have Hawaii, a road trip to Hawaii on the schedule or something like that, where you get that NCAA allowed 13th game.
Right. But they didn't have a break between any of their games. So to see 2 bye weeks is really cool. And my thoughts immediately went to you because I was like, oh, fall vacation Brad is the best Brad.
And also there's been times where like in the bye weeks past where I'll just like look at the other the schedule of games across the nation, like what's a cool environment to like go, like, go to Virginia Tech or something like that, see Enter Sandman live, or check one of the bucket list items that like otherwise I'll never get to see. But maybe
you got to make use of all those home field T-shirts you have somehow.
That's true. Well, actually, not wearing a home field shirt today, like it's a rarity. So
it's just like what are the legitimate odds? 1 in 11, 1 in 12 that you're going to be found in something not home field?
Oh, geez. Let's see. The home field counts like 126. I don't. There's maybe 12 in the road that are still hanging in the closet that have not been relegated to the sleep shirt drawer. So yeah, it's tough.
Now that they're not in conference anymore, I wonder if I could get away with the UCLA bomber jacket. It's very nice.
So I was very upset because I do have a lot of Big 12 shirts because it was their home fields collection. By the way, use offer code SOTD23 at checkout for 15% off your first purchase from the good brand at homefieldapparel.com and check out their 25-piece ASU collection. But yeah, and then I stayed away from, other than Wazoo and Oregon State, I stayed away from any Pac-12 stuff. But now, like, all of a sudden, like, now I have a bunch of shirts of ASU's new conference rivals that I can't wear anymore.
Hey, you could do the like know your enemy giveaways.
That's true. Brad Denny game worn shirts. Sign them for charity.
Love it.
So we were getting back to the schedule after the week off. Who knows where Brad will be on the weekend of the 28th of September, but on the 5th, I will be in Tempe, as will the Sun Devils and the Kansas Jayhawks, as Lance Leipold comes in town with perhaps star quarterback, also injury-prone quarterback, Jalen Daniels, who's returning. Should be a very interesting game because, God damn, that offense is so fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. And they recruited Arizona hard, so that like there's going to be people showing up for that. Kansas being good at football is fascinating to me because if I had to name like the 3 worst teams You do kind of like there's a formative time that if a team is bad, then like to you they're always bad. So like if you were one of the first 3 teams that I played in NBA Jam, the first version,
The Clippers are always terrible.
yes, you are an eternal poverty franchise. So like the Dallas Mavericks and the Clippers are
Oh,
always going to be bad because they were at the beginning of NBA Jam. I look at Kansas as the worst football school in America. And so to see what Lance Leipold has been able to do, to see the investment that's coming, Kansas, another place where checks clear. And I'm also really curious because we know this. You especially know this. You've been in Arizona forever, right? Yes, there are people from the Midwest. Yes, there are people from California. Yeah, we got our people from Salt Lake and Seattle. But there are so many people from Plains Country.
Mm-hmm.
So many. Like, and they don't get to participate in really anything. And so I'm really curious as to that first home game, how Kansas shows up. Because in their minds, if they are a Kansas fan, they are going to watch the best Kansas football team potentially there has been. Right? So like they're going to watch the best non-Mark Mangino coached Kansas team of all time. And if ASU fans don't fill that place out, it could be a very interesting environment. And so I really, 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 really hope that Arizona State builds up some momentum and they protect Sun Devil Mountain America Desert Financial Frank Kush Bankfield with, with everybody. I hope everybody shows up for that game because it's going to be a really good team. It's a well-coached team, and if their quarterback is healthy, big if, he is electric. He's not like dollar store Jaden Daniels. He's like at that level, like could have done a lot of what Jaden Daniels did in LSU's offense this year had he been running LSU's offense. Electric. So I think it's going to be a fun challenge, and I really hope people show up and keep the opposing fans to a minimum in that game.
Yeah, the scheme is just so fun to watch. A lot of option elements, just like creative stuff that just like real schoolyard stuff, but just it really works. And when you have a trigger man like Jalen Daniels, or even like I believe Jason Bean was the backup who saw it most of the time this past season due to injury, like it was just a real fun offense to watch. And to your point of just like those teams that are just like imprinted in your mind is just like always god awful, but like seeing them like. New Mexico State was a great example this past year. Diego Pavia just getting that offense going and just seeing those universities finally get success after decades of doormat status. Really cool to see. But now that they're a conference rival, maybe not so much. But should be a really intriguing Big 12 home conference opener. But just 6 days later, Ralph, a familiar face coming to Tempe for the lone non-Saturday game. This will be on Friday, October 11th. And good thing Joe's not here because this is damn sure a rivalry game. ASU hosts Utah.
Absolutely. Average temperature. You say October 12th, right?
October 11th, Friday.
October 11th. Okay. Did I see that it was optional? Like it could get moved to a Saturday? Is that on the table still?
ASU is just putting it as the 11th. I don't know. Perhaps if there's leeway. Okay. A Saturday game, I wouldn't complain. Then make them all Saturdays.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The record high on October 11th is 106. The average high is 92. And if you have been in Arizona anytime during the last 5 years,
I was gonna say, what's the 5-year average?
Yeah, 11,000. It's gonna be, and I'm so excited. I hope they melt. And I what I am hoping for is a healthy Cam Rising. I think he's in like on his 3rd major knee blowout, and they're a completely different team without him. I want to square up with Utah as Utah.
And Brant Keithy's coming back too, right?
Brant Keithy is coming back too, and they should be.
Britton Covey's probably in there somewhere in his 47th season.
He's a punt returner in the NFL. I just can't remember for whom, but I see his name all the time, and every time I clench my jaw. And it also has been very, very weird to be a temporary Bills fan, um, and have to cheer for a former Utah tight end, um,
Oh,
as the target of Josh Allen's passes. So
mm,
that's been
mm,
tough. To me, this absolutely is a rivalry. Embrace all rivalries. I'm going to suggest later in the podcast that we start a new one.
mm.
But yeah, Utah in Tempe, make them feel unwelcome. Let it be the hottest day on earth, and like let's be physical back. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because I mean Utah with their returning and their status as just perennial Pac-12
Mm-hmm.
contenders. Have you figured that they're just going to slide right over, and especially with the Blue Bloods leaving for the SEC, that Utah is going to be able to kind of contend from the jump out there. So it's going to be an interesting game, and just that's the second of only 3 October games that ASU will play this season. Because and then perhaps that extra day of being a Friday game might help because ASU will then be making the longest journey of the season for a October 19th game at Cincinnati, which is not the capital C Cincinnati of the playoff run, the Desmond Ridder, Sauce Gardner type of years. They were kind of a mess last year. Emory Jones, unfortunately, not able to find a whole lot of success out there, but it's going to be interesting because it's a far trip. And I don't know, like the weather in Ohio, late October, maybe it could be tricky.
It could be, yeah. This is a game that you're going to have to win. They're still, they're still trying to find their footing. They tried to rely heavily on the portal last year, as many schools have. Didn't necessarily work out in their favor. Also, I think it was their first year having to run the gauntlet of an actual major college schedule
Mm-hmm.
in a while. So, they are they're trying to find their footing. Getting this game at home is probably the best thing that can happen for them. I am slightly irritated that I am going to have to finally learn how to spell one of the 2 words that I've tripped over as long as I've been alive. Um, Cincinnati is my Everest. Can't do it.
Rhythm is my word. I just let the red squiggly line come up and take care of that.
That's a tough one. I'm on license in Cincinnati. I've been kicking my ass for almost 40 years now.
Do you go like the British license? Is that the problem?
Sure, if it's right. Whatever is right, I'll do it that way.
Yes.
However I do it is bad enough for spell check to not ever do anything about. So
that's when when it just refuses to just
right.
It's like so after the trip to Cincinnati, which ASU should be able to handle that one. The second of the 2 bye weeks on the weekend of the 26th, but then ASU will be. I think it might be nice because they get the bye week, extra time to prepare for the at this point very familiar opponent. 3rd year in a row, the Sun Devils will be facing Oklahoma State, 2nd time in Stillwater. This is a team that obviously took down ASU a season ago when they're still in the midst of their early season, just Gundy weirdness of just let's play 3 quarterbacks, even though there's a guy there. But then they decided, hey, let's just give the ball to Ollie Gordon and just have him run for 1 billion yards and finish as a 10-win team.
Yeah. They lost 18 players in the transfer portal, didn't do a good job really replacing anyone, went into last year without a quarterback, took 2 of the most embarrassing losses of the college football season, and did not look like they were on Arizona State's level at a time when Arizona State didn't even know what they were doing, and they won 10 games. It was a masterclass by Coach Gundy, and now Ollie Gordon is back because he was only a sophomore, and Alan Bowman, get ready for a stat. Alan Bowman, who played for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech, multiple seasons for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas
Collapsed
Tech.
his lung at one point.
Yes, is back for a 7th season. So you're gonna be experiencing a very similar team to what you squared off against last year, and it's not just Jalen Conyers we'll be seeing, but Isaiah Glass as well.
That's true.
I believe that he'll be featured pretty prominently in that offense. So I love the kid. I cover high school and people whose only allegiance to Arizona State is being an Arizona State fan. I don't expect you to be a big fan, of Isai Glass, especially when you have like media taking parting shots at him on the way out. It's not really set up for success, but I wish him the best. It'll be good to see him, and that's just kind of the way you have to treat it at this point, because people can come and go. You never know who's going to come back around. It's a strange time to be a college football fan, but if the end product is just being a more decent human being, maybe it's not all bad.
So the Oklahoma State game will be the first of 3 road games in the month of November of the final 5. So as after the trip to Stillwater again, ASU comes back home on November 9th. They'll be facing off against UCF. Don't call them Central Florida.
Yeah.
They get very sensitive about that.
All right. Who is in? Who's with me? This is our new rival.
Ooh. Go on.
UCF. Why not? The best thing that ever happened to them was Scott Frost. The best thing that ever happened to us was playing against Scott Frost. Like, we're probably the most amenitied city in the Big 12 outside of Orlando. They have managed to have a rabid fan base despite existing in the city with the most distractions on earth plus an ocean. So if they can do it, we certainly can do it. Their fans are insane. Matching their energy is only going to be a net positive for us. Might be a headache for people like you, but why not? It's a dumb little space school. Nobody even cares about space. Also, they have like 65,000 students.
Oh my,
so
I can't help but hear whenever UCF is brought up, I can't help but think of Stephen Godfrey's epic tweet that since deleted, but like he's got kind of a fun rivalry with the school. He called it like a degree farm for Hilton night managers.
See, why not? Why not? They have an unearned reputation. We also have a reputation. Earned is up for debate, depending on who's listening to this.
Yeah, they think they invented outer space.
Yeah, they think that they invented outer space, and we think we invented fun. And I think that's who I want bad blood. I want it with UCF. I want them to be thinking about us all the time. I want them to be calling us the Florida of the Southwest. All of it, whatever they can break out to make this one a little bit more fun, because there are some schools you're just going to have a rivalry with based on interacting with their fans. Like, I can tell you this right now, the first time that ASU fans and West Virginia fans interact on the internet, you're going to have even the most hardened ASU fans be like, well, my word, like they're going to be, they're going to be shocked at how aggressive that fan base is. That's not necessarily reflective of the product that they're going to put on the football field, right?
Mountaineers are coming to town next year, and the trip that Ray Anderson's very happy to avoid to Morgantown was 2027.
Yes, that is the thought that he would still be available to attend that game was horrifying to me. But I mean, like, there's definitely going to be fan bases that you interact with that make this a little bit more of an intense matchup, but I feel like with every fire there has to be some kindling, right? Like there has to be some level of ignition, and I just like whatever I can say to upset UCF fans. I just want it to happen. I just want to step back and let it exist as a rivalry, because you figure we're always going to have, we're always going to have dicey contests with the corner schools. But Texas Tech is nearby, but is that really going to be it? I don't think so. Yeah. I say, why not Orlando? Why not we set our sights on Disneytown?
Well, one thing they've done horribly is rebrand and get rid of their original mascot, the Citronaut, which is absolutely awesome and adorable. And that shirt is available at homefieldapparel.com. Use offer code SOTD23 at checkout to score that shirt as well. For the Golden Knights, I mean, come on, man, that's pretty effing generic.
Oh yeah, no, I love the hockey team. Like, I can't wait for that one, because I do feel like, and I would love for the rest of the conference to receive it as very much like two elitist cities. One has Goofy and Daisy Duck, and one has Chuckbox, and therefore we look down.
Advantage Tempe.
Upon, yes, exactly. Advantage Tempe for sure. But we look down our noses at everybody else, because there are other things to do in our college football town. I would love for that to be the case. I want bad blood with UCF, and I'm still in the process of brainstorming how to make it happen. But I think we can artificially start a little bit of a war here.
All right, I'm on board. Let's do it. The next week, ASU will be taking a trip. This might be one of the harder games on the slate, even more so being on the road at Kansas State, November 16th. Ooh, could be a cold one.
It could be. It could be. Is it? Is it going to be that much different than like Eugene or Corvallis? I'm shivering even saying the word Corvallis. I had the worst time of my life covering a road game in Seattle. Frank Darby was in, but it could be bad. I've heard that it gets pretty cold. That's where my mother-in-law went to school there. My wife lived there before she moved to Arizona. She hadn't been back in like 26 years, so I think we're going to make the trip. But man, I'm really looking forward to that game because Chris Kleiman, he's just the man.
Yeah.
Like, and again, North Dakota State coaching tree, love it, love everything about it. And, he won multiple championships after he followed Craig Bowl, went to Kansas State, and he's just made him tough. Because I think for a long time, people believed that unless it was Bruce Snyder coaching up a bunch of kids from Dodge City, Garden City, and all the Kansas JUCOs, that Kansas State wasn't going to be able to compete. But they're building a heck of a team, and they lost their quarterback to Ohio State, and they're spitting mad because they don't want to be second place to anybody. And so it will be really, really interesting to see what they come back with as Arizona State fans, them not having Will Howard, not the worst thing in the entire world. So, if they're not able to replace his production, it could be a winnable game for Arizona State. But yeah, I mean, the weather could be, it could be not fun for sure.
Although, did you see the young kid quarterback? They got Avery Johnson, I believe, in the bowl game. He's exciting. He's a dual threat. A guy who made some really incredible plays, and just kind of some, obviously kind of, bowl games come with a little bit of an asterisk, but just seems like they got the talent. But of course, that's just a program that just likes to smash you in the face. And even going back, I've been kind of fond of them since the days of Michael Bishop doing his thing back in the late 90s. But so it's always a program that is just year after year really good. Of course, they're just a year removed from a Big 12 championship as well. So going on the road, it's going to be I think that's going to be one that I have circled as well.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think that they believe, I don't think they love the Will Howard thing, but I do think that they believe that they should be a top 3 team going in, and I think that they're going to feel really disrespected when they end up at like 5 or 6 in these preseason polls, because all of a sudden you have a bunch of new voters who have never watched any Big 12 football. This is going to be the most inaccurate preseason poll since every Pac-12 poll that has ever come out. And those are the people that are going to vote in this new thing. So get ready.
Oh, it's going to be great. At least they're bringing Media Day to Vegas, so they're doing us a favor there. So
that's pretty cool.
Then in the home stretch, ASU's home finale will be Senior Day on November 23rd, when this is a team that I will pitch a rivalry. I think it doesn't need too much help from me. BYU coming to Tempe.
Yeah. Gosh, it could be the Bourget Bowl.
That's true. Trayson.
Trenton versus Trayson. Be very, very interesting if that's the case. I don't think people would need any extra reasons to consume this football game. BYU has a massive, massive fan base in the Valley, obviously. And everywhere they go, they have people who are not fans. So it's going to be a wild game regardless. I think about the fact that they met in a neutral site in the game with University of Arizona. They played in Glendale or whatever and almost packed that place out. My hope is that the Arizona State fans hold on to their tickets for that one, or at least absolutely fleece any BYU fans that you sell them to, and then donate the excess proceeds to Sun Angel or something. But I think that the stadium's going to be full. It's going to be rocking. This is not a shot at BYU. I don't think they're going to care, but because of the time period that we're in with so many super seniors, so many super duper seniors, it's going to be nice to go up against a BYU squad and be the same age. Like that's going to be like that's been a thing. I've been bothered by BYU for a really, really long time. I don't get hung up on the fact that like a bunch of their players are 24, 25 or whatever. But it's definitely the first excuse I bring up when they beat Wyoming. So of course I'm going to be, out of excuses this time, as ASU has, got 5th and 6th years still on the roster. This is probably going to be the last year of it for a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, that game is going to be so much fun. I am worried about its proximity to Arizona because both of those are emotions up games. Maybe not for the players on the BYU side, but certainly for the fans. And so, to have to take on BYU, then go down to Tucson the next week, it's going to be a lot.
And then, of course, as tradition dictates, and as Doug Tamaro put it on Twitter, something that but the folks at both schools made sure the Big 12 knew that it's the proper way to end a season with the Territorial Cup battle. This one, of course, being in Tucson on November 30th. 6 home games, 6 road games. Ralph, any just kind of, as we close out, we've kind of gone week by week, but just any kind of big picture thoughts as we put a bow on the schedule review?
I will say, I want to say I'm grateful to the Big 12 for allowing that to take place, because if you look at some of these new teams don't know each other yet, like how they finish is crazy. Like Utah finishes the season in Orlando. The natural end of season rivalry between Salt Lake City and Orlando. There's actually a musical that involves both those cities. I don't know if you've seen it, but anyway, I am very, very grateful that is the case. And then big picture, I look at there's a couple of these schools just have murderer's row schedules. University of Arizona getting tested early. I love the way Arizona State's set up. I really do. To get the opportunity to kind of like judge your team over that first quarter of the season, and then take a week off, reassess, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And then the break in the middle, I think, is very, very important to separate your season in chunks and chapters. So I love the way that it's set up. I'm really looking forward to talking to as many people as possible about what cities you're going to this year, because I'm fascinated by all of these new places. And like I said, with the Big 12, these are people that are going to want to show off, right? It's important to them how you view them and their city. And so I think I'm going to try to go to Cincinnati. I think I'm going to try to go to Manhattan, and maybe do 2 a year. But yeah, I think I'm excited about the new chapter. I'm excited about the way it's laid out for Arizona State. I look at some of the other schedules that other people have, and it seems like we didn't get the shortest end of the stick, and that's really all you can be grateful for at this point.
Yeah, it's going to take some getting used to, but it's good. It's going to be real fun to see a lot of new places. It sounds like I might be able to see at a couple of these destinations as well. As we close out here real quick, Jacob's League had a question for us. He posed it to us on Twitter, and with a caveat, outside of the schools coming over from the Pac-12, so that eliminates Utah, Arizona, and Colorado. Give us 2 to 3 schools y'all would want to see ASU face every year in football going forward. He thinks that yearly rivalries with UCF, maybe you guys are in cahoots there, Kansas and BYU would be fun.
Sure. I mean, I think there's probably a much bigger football fan base of K-State. And I think that having that fan base there adds a little bit of flavor to it. But I mean, on a personal level, I just want all of Orlando to be upset with all of Tempe and vice versa. Were they involved in the fake rivalry? Were they part of the civil conflict? I can't remember.
Oh, that's like
that was UConn. And was it South Florida?
I think so, yeah, South Florida.
Okay, so not Central. Okay, so we're not stealing from anybody. We'll have our own fake rival. We can make a trophy.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. That's who I want. I'd play him tomorrow. I'm not in charge, but why not? Line it up.
All right, so there's a look at ASU's 2024 schedule. If you want the Big 12. While back, it released the home and away opponents through 2027. Some interesting things. So some teams that will be coming to town in the future. Some road trips ASU will be taking in the years to come are also pretty interesting because, of course, with size of this conference. Now there's going to be 6 teams per year that you don't see. So I think they got a pretty good rotation. So it's going to be real interesting, real fun. But as we kind of put a cap on this, now it's a good time to bring you a conversation I had recently with Brady White, the former ASU quarterback. I believe, Ralph, he was at the time, the highest rated quarterback signee ASU had ever pulled in as a member of that 2015 class.
I believe so. Hart High School, California kid, and was a mid-year transfer and was actually at ASU for quite a long time. You don't realize it, but when you come in December, I think he might have even got a degree. I think he might be a Sun Devil.
Oh, he absolutely did. And then, and an extremely smart kid, got his degree, then transferred to Memphis, where he threw for over 10,000 yards, 90 touchdowns. Won, I believe, the Campbell Trophy is like the top scholar athlete in the NCAA in his final season there. Really impressive young man. Played a couple seasons in the USFL, but now coming back to Tempe as a offensive assistant. They'll be working under Rashad Samples with the son of a wide receiver, so I had a good chance to catch up with Brady. So here's that conversation. All right, Brady, obviously coming back to Tempe, rejoining the Son of a Football program. Walk our listeners and viewers how this opportunity came up and why it was the right move for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously always stayed in touch with Coach Dillingham just from the strong relationship that we have. And it's been fun to follow his success and throughout his journey in college football. But it really just came from a phone call. I was back home and got a phone call from Coach Dillingham, letting me know that there was an opportunity available, and then got to, talk more to him about that, and also talk with Coach Arroyo, and things just kept rolling from there. And within a few days, the things went in my favor, and they offered me the job, and then I was able to get out here shortly after that, and now we're kind of settled in here in Tempe and excited to be Sun Devils again.
All right, so kind of maybe the 3-part question here. Obviously, you mentioned the relationship with Kenny Dillingham goes back quite a ways. Obviously, his origins kind of as a member of the staff, I believe at GA at the time during your playing days. What are the things that kind of when you harken back to those days when you were a player for the Sun Devils that you remember about Kenny the GA?
Yeah, I mean, I got to not only be with Kenny when he was first getting started here at Arizona State, but also when he was a play caller at Memphis. And so, the one thing I know about Kenny is he's extremely intelligent and bright, and he's bringing a lot of energy, obviously extremely passionate and energetic. And so I think he's shown that to his hometown here in Tempe, in the Valley of Arizona, and I'm excited to be joining his staff.
What are some of the things that you think that, when you guys were at Memphis together and you obviously were having tremendous success, throwing for over 10,000 yards, what were some of the things that he kind of imparted upon you that allowed you to have that success?
Yeah, we worked really well together. I remember, he's a great teacher of football, and really gives, boosts confidence in his players, really empowers them and gives them all the tools and the knowledge to be prepared to step on that field and give your best every day. And so it was a lot of fun and a great experience to play for him. And also he's big on the relationship piece. And I think that's a strength of his. And that's something that is truly special to find in college football nowadays, especially, a really good person and human being, not just a coach, who really genuinely cares about you. And so to be a part, to be, right next to that guy day in and day out, and to be a part of his journey and to be a part of his staff, it's a great honor and privilege. And so I'm excited to get started.
Of course, going back to those days when he was GA, you were a Sun Devil quarterback. Unfortunately, your time here in Tempe was marred by injury in that one start and not a whole lot of playing time. But when you look back on your days, your first, and I guess we can say now as a Sun Devil, what were some of the most the fondest memories that you have?
Yeah, I absolutely love Arizona. I obviously picked ASU over a bunch of different options coming out of high school, and that would have never changed if I could go back. This is a special place, fantastic university, and obviously I've been able to connect and get to know a lot of really, really unique and special individuals, starting here in Arizona. And so while I wasn't able to play a ton, and the one start I got, you suffer a season-ending injury that kind of puts you out for some time. I've found a place that has brought me a ton of amazing relationships, whether it's close friends. I've obviously known my wife since high school, but she was also a Sun Devil, and then obviously a myriad of relationships throughout the coaching business, and plenty of teammates that have gone on to play professionally, that go on to coach, that go on to do things in their own lives, that you just stay in touch and continue to grow those relationships. And so it's always been a place that's been near and dear to my heart, and I'm really excited to be bringing my wife and I back to Arizona State.
What's it been like just knowing that you're seeing over the years so many members of that Sun Devil staff, whether it's Kenny, the Dan Lanning, Mike Norvell, of course, that you teamed up with her to great success in Memphis. Just so many of those names that you knew and got to work with on a day in, day out basis, having massive impact on the college sport or college football landscape now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm talking about. I think it speaks volumes, to obviously the people and the coaches that have come through this place. And, you got to give credit to the coaching staff that, Coach Graham had put together in those years. And like you mentioned, it's just incredible to see, not just the amount of good coaches, but guys that are like considered stars in the profession now and having, massive impacts on the game, and are running top tier programs. So, to be able to have been here with all those people and, to know them and have relationships and gotten to experience how they coached and learn some things, along the way, and obviously continue to do that now. Really cool experience. So that's, a great kind of honor that I've had.
Of course, you go off to Memphis and throw for a bunch of yards, a bunch of touchdowns, all kinds of records that you have for the Tigers still. Obviously you had great success off the field as well. When you look at the totality of your college career, what are the accomplishments you're most proud of?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I was saying doing all that on the field wasn't an absolute blast in the time of my life. So it was tons of fun to have taken that field and had, massive amounts of success with the coaches and the teammates and the people in the building day in and day out. I was very blessed to have been with those guys and to have played with awesome guys alongside me. I definitely need to make sure that I give all those guys the credit and the great coaching staffs that I've been a part of. I'd also, I'm super proud of, I think, the accomplishments off the field as well. That's something that I've always prided myself in, is, taking care of my business in the classroom, but also, giving back to the community and making sure that, whatever platform and stage that I have, using that, for the benefit of others and, the people around me. And I feel like I did that. I feel like I had a positive impact in the places that I've been. And so those things are things that I'm always going to, be proud to hang my hat on, as well as the football accomplishments. But, I think it feels even better to be a better man and a better person on top of being a good football player.
Of course, it runs in the family a bit, but when did the idea of jumping into coaching whenever your playing days are over kind of first pop in your head?
Yeah, it's funny. I was always told by, these coaches that have coached me, like, whenever you're done, you're going to play a while, and whenever you're done, you're going to be a phenomenal coach. And I always heard that, but you're so set on, accomplishing your goals and playing as long as you can. I think it's always been in the back of my mind, something that I've known I want to do eventually. And I've had the great privilege to have been coached by, my father, who's a fantastic dad, but also, he was a wonderful coach growing up, and then getting into high school and having some legendary coaching staffs with Coach Harrington. And then obviously, we've already touched on the people that I've been able to connect with in my college career. And I just love this game, man. This thing is my drug. I'm addicted to it, and I love everything about it. And so it was a pretty easy choice, once I decided to finish playing, to make the transition. I'm very, very fortunate and blessed that, Coach Silverfield helped me get started with that out in Memphis. And now we're here, we are where we are today.
As you mentioned, in Memphis, working with the wide receivers over there, and it sounds like he'll be doing the same here in Tempe with the Sun Devil receivers. What's it been like just kind of, making that mark from, going to the other side of that passing connection?
Yeah, it's been obviously there's little things here and there and details and nuances to learn, and I've had great people to learn from out back in Memphis, but also here, obviously with Coach Samples being a fantastic coach with a fantastic resume. I'm really excited to work alongside him, day in and day out and learn from him. But it's been really fun, and it's a very easy transition, for me since I was able. Those are the guys that I've been working with my entire career. Whether I was intentionally doing it or not, you're always communicating with them, connecting with them, because those are the guys that, you have to be yin and yang with. You got to be super tight with on and off the field. So for me, when I was, first getting into coaching and had that job, it was a pretty smooth transition. And like I said, you kind of learn the day in and day out duties, certain things that you need to do in order to help them be best prepared and to benefit them as you go. But I'm really excited to kind of pick that back up here and see the guys that we have in our room and get them ready for the fall.
You touched on Rashad Samples, one of the rising stars in the profession. Kenny Dillingham last year, a few times actually, said he's probably going to be the next youngest head coach in major college football. Just early on, some early impressions about Coach Samples, and what do you think you guys can accomplish together?
Yeah, well, so far it's been communication through the phone because he's been on the road recruiting. So I have yet to meet Coach Samples in person because he's busy right now, which is good. But no, it's funny. I was actually in Memphis when I first saw his name. Me and someone else on our staff were just looking at NFL coaching staffs and saw this young coach for the Rams, and I was just extremely impressed. And obviously, I've had a teammate who played for the Rams, and Daryl Henderson, who was a running back. So Coach Samples was probably coaching him. So I'm excited to connect with him on that. But I've heard nothing but extremely positive things. I know that you don't get where he's at without being a guy that deserves it and works his ass off, and obviously is extremely intelligent and talented. And so, getting to meet him here soon, probably this week, and being able to work with him, I'm really excited to pick his brain, to be learning from him. And I agree with Coach Dillingham. He's probably going to have a pretty significant role here in college football quickly.
And of course, still early, but this is a receiver group that has one of the conference's best, and Elijah Badger, some other guys, some very talented guys. Jake Smith's now going to be eligible to play. What's your kind of early read on just this 2024 group of Sun Devil wide receivers? Kind of obviously early on.
Yeah, it's been fun to follow this group. Obviously being a former Sun Devil and alum, I've always kept tabs on the team, and obviously with Coach Dillingham here, I watched a lot of their games. Even across the country, and you get to see, the skill level and the talent that this group has. And, getting here not too long ago, just picking the brains of the staff that's here in town about those guys. You get to hear a lot of really good remarks, things that you want to hear as a guy who's going to be in that room, coaching those guys every day. And it's been fun to watch them, go to work every day. Since I've been here, obviously they're in their workout programs, and they're kind of grinding away, and it's been fun to just go introduce myself, get to know them a little bit early here, and watch them, their work ethic. And you can see, some of those traits and those skill sets come out in some of those drills. But I'm really excited for when we get started here soon officially, and to get to know them more, learn about them, hear what makes them tick, and what their dreams and aspirations are, and help them achieve those.
As you mentioned, so many people telling you that you have a bright future in coaching, and just a young guy getting started in this business. What are the long-term goals in the profession? What do you hope to accomplish as a coach?
Yeah, I'm obviously really excited to see what this journey has for me. It is crazy, but it's super fun, and I'm blessed to be in the position I am. I've got my dreams and aspirations. Obviously, want to continue to elevate and grow in the college football, world and in the coaching profession. And I know that'll come with time. So we'll see. I've got my goals, but I've shared this with a bunch of people. In my short time as a coach, I've already heard from many people that it's very important to be where your feet are at. It's very easy to get ahead of yourself and just be going and trying to accomplish and achieve and continue to level up. And obviously you do that and you work hard and you have the things that you want to attain, but something big for me is I really want to just enjoy this moment. I want to enjoy this stage in my career as a coach and be very present with this group, give them everything I've got, my heart and soul, and give back to this community of Tempe and all the Sun Devils here. And I really want to help these kids, man, grow to be better football players and achieve their dreams of playing hopefully at the next level, but also to develop as young men. And if I can share just a little bit of wisdom from my experience and help them, get 1% better, I'll feel really good about myself.
All right, great stuff from Brady there, but we cannot have Ralph Amsden on the program without talking a little bit of local recruiting. Now, it's probably a good time for that because it's been just a little bit over a year since Kenny Dillingham took over in Tempe, and obviously, as we've well documented with you and just overall, just the relationships, kind of the state of local recruiting under the prior regime had really deteriorated. Obviously, the Brock Purdy story coming, from the jump, things weren't good. But now, as we're a year into this, just what, in your estimation, Ralph, what progress, if any, or how much has been made in kind of repairing those relationships between Arizona State football and the local high school community, players, coaches, etc.?
So Kenny Dillingham is still on borrowed time as one of them, right? There's a grace period. He was a Arizona high school coach. He helped out at Arizona State. He had jobs all over the country, and everywhere he went, he stayed in contact with all of the coaches of the major programs and some of the smaller programs. There were people in the state of Arizona at one point with offers from Memphis, Auburn, and Oregon at the same time. And those are three very different places to be recruiting somebody in Arizona. But it was him, and he was the one maintaining those relationships because he had his eye on the possibility of the future, and he knew what he would do when put in this situation. Now, you spend all that time envisioning what your life is going to be like as Arizona State's coach and how to fix a lot of the things that the fans complain about the most. And you dedicate a bunch of your energy to this future problem that you might be able to solve. But when you get to the future, the problem has evolved to the point where there's not even a recognizable environment anymore. Now name, image, and likeness is involved. And now you have access to anybody who wants to make a change, either as a graduate transfer or somebody who is disgruntled or somebody who's not in the right situation. So I have long put out my theory that every ASU coach has to go to the mat to protect the state with the understanding that they're going to lose. And it's okay to lose these fights because you set up the potential to get somebody on the way back, like a Casey Tucker, like a Christian Westerman. You set that up for yourself. I believe very much that should have been the strategy all along, but you don't tell people that that's your strategy. You don't just come out and say it like, hey, and if we don't get you, we'll see you tomorrow. That's not how you go about it. You have to do it in earnest. And then Kenny Dillingham comes along and he sees that and he's like, yeah, but why can't you just say it? And he has been saying it publicly and privately. Look, Johnny wide receiver, you are going to have all of the opportunities in the world. You deserve them. If you find a situation for you that is better than Arizona State, I'm going to be your biggest fan. I want nothing but success for you. You deserve to be rewarded. And if that's where the name, image, and likeness opportunity is, then and that's important to your family, that's something that you have to consider. If you're looking at the depth chart and early playing time is the most important thing to you, I'm looking at that same depth chart too, and you might not be wrong. And I'll tell you what, not only am I going to root for you, I'll be here if it doesn't work out. And if there's not a spot for you here, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure people know the type of young man that you are and what you could do for them for the right program. I am in your corner. I am on your team, even if you're not on mine. And that is how he's going about this. And that is like psychotic to think is even a thing, you know? And there's like, I'm sure an old school of thought that's like you play to win the game. You know, you don't punt for field position in recruiting, but you absolutely do punt for field position in recruiting. You do. And so this strategy will not pay immediate dividends is a thing that Arizona State fans have to understand. But they have to understand what he's doing, and how can you understand something that hasn't been done in an environment that you're not too keen on in the first place. So be patient. The seeds are planted. The stalks are sprouting. Gardening metaphor, fruit. Like, it's gonna happen. It is already happening. But these kids, if they do leave, are leaving knowing that there's no bitterness. You didn't get blocked on social media. You didn't get badmouthed. Kenny Dillingham understands that the people that he's dealing with are also very young. And one of my least favorite things about the recruiting beat when I was really on it full time, covering Arizona State, is we all have our principles and how we're going to treat a young athlete until they've offended us in a way that that goes beyond what our value system will allow for, right? So take University of Arizona, for example. They very much, all of the media that doubles as fans, which I semi-exist as now and understand, are like, don't tweet at the kids. Whatever decision they make is whatever decision they make. You know, these are kids. They don't have fully developed frontal lobes. They were recruited by somebody else. You don't want to gain the reputation as malcontents. You want to show these players that you're with them. And then you have a guy like Ephesians Prysock tweet out his jersey as if he's going to stay at University of Arizona, and then tweet out his commitment to University of Washington. And then all of a sudden it's, yeah, I know I said all that, but this guy sucks and I need to let him know he sucks, because if I don't let him know he sucks, how's he going to know he sucks? So I know I said don't tweet at the kids, but this guy sucks. He's not going to know he sucks unless I tell him. And so the cognitive dissonance that starts to exist, right? So you have to be gracious, you have to be forgiving, you have to be understanding, and you have to have security. You cannot be insecure as an Arizona State fan. You have to know what you have in the building, in Kenny Dillingham, in these coordinators, in the Tempe football experience. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I believe it with all my heart. Arizona State University is the best second decision you will ever make in your life. Ever. Mm-hmm. You will not regret it. You won't, especially if you, and I remember Charlie Turner Thorne talking about this, of like how she loved transfers, because then she was dealing with adults who actually had considered what they need to get out of a situation. In young people who have been just going around doing what they're told by other people, all of a sudden have goals, all of a sudden have an aim. And even if it's the pendulum thing of wanting to stay away from something that they don't like, at least they understand that much more about themselves. There's an emotional maturity that comes with it. Now, is it annoying to recruit and field a team in this environment? Absolutely. But I think that what Charlie Turner Thorne said is true. So you have to be willing as a fan base to follow Kenny Dillingham's lead on this and understand that it's a long play, right? He currently, and it's one of the reasons he publicly praises Jordan Travis and Bo Nix so often, he currently has the ability to point to both of those guys because people know who those guys are. In a couple of years, recruits aren't going to know who those guys are. So he needs to produce on his end in order to be able to be one of the few that can just say like, hey, if you're a quarterback, I'm that dude. Because there's only a handful of those. Lincoln Riley, one of them. Sometimes the institution takes care of it for you. But sometimes it just is the coach, and wherever that coach goes, good quarterbacks are going to follow. Kenny Dillingham is on the precipice of being that because he can point to Bo Nix and he can point to Jordan Travis. In a couple of years, that's just not going to be as relevant. So as long as they produce, this strategy can work twofold. He can meet his standard for the type of player that he wants to coach within the program as far as high school rankings, and he can make Arizona State appealing as a second option to people who maybe have left and come back. And I don't think I ever really understood the magneticism of Arizona State as a bounce back for Arizona kids until I moved to a state that had 70 options for postgraduate football. I am 2 hours in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am 2 hours from Clemson, from South Carolina, from Duke, from North Carolina State, from Wake, from App State. And then you get into like the D2s and the HBCUs. Also, University of Charlotte is right here. I'm Wofford and Furman and Gardner-Webb. All of these places are right next to me. And Arizona doesn't have that at all. There is no other option. If you get homesick, if there's a spot at NAU for you, that's still 3 hours from home. So your options are really Tucson or Tempe. And so you have to make yourself open to that. Kenny Dillingham is the most open to this environment of college football of anybody I've ever seen. And I'm trying to be objective about that. I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but I'm telling you, even if his methods seem weird, even if they're foreign to you, I think he has the best strategy. I think he has the best hand at the table, and I think he has the best way to play it. What it's going to come down to is, are the resources and backing of the Arizona State fans available, assuming the NCAA doesn't swoop in and pay for play altogether. But in that case, I think Arizona State also has mechanisms by which to make sure that people are working for the NIL money that they bring in. Some of these amounts at some of these colleges can't be justified. You're going to go tie some animal balloons together for $8 million at Tennessee? That's not, I checked jobs.com, Indeed, $8 million balloon man, not on there. Right. So it has to be more realistic and more sustainable situation. But as long as that financial backing is there, you're going to have a lot of people who want to come back to Arizona State. And that's going to just benefit ASU. And with their hooks in Texas for the young guys, and with as much games as they're playing in Texas, I think California is going to be a really hard road to hoe. I'm sorry. It is. Brent Brennan, they've got a built-in advantage. He's fantastic. San Jose State was almost always the first guy to come in on every California player, Jaden Rashada, I think, included. They're just always really good at identifying talent really young. And since he's got that built up base, they might be able to get some people out of California. But other than that, I think Arizona State is set up better in the transfer market. I think that they're set up better with the with the hometown bounce backs. And I believe Kenny Dillingham, at least through the end of the season, is still operating in the grace period of having been one of these guys. The offers aren't going to be as plentiful because he knew a 4-star kid's not coming out to Memphis. So he really, really has to be intentional with the offers that he delivers. But the trick is, do you know the kids? And he is doing his best to get to know every kid that's out there. This is the first staff that has ever been in communication with my staff on a regular basis, ever. To talk about what kids are doing well in sevens, to talk about what kids are, what their character's like, to talk about what freshmen to look out for so that you're not the third, fourth school to offer them. These are conversations that I know for a fact weren't happening, at least with my staff before, that are happening now. So I've got all the faith in the world in him. It's a new day though. It's a new thing. And so he could have the best strategy in the world, but because everything turned on a dime, I think he's playing this as well as he possibly can. But until next summer, you might not see what it is you really, really want to see. And maybe beyond that, because, guys like Demond, don't want to stay at, Demond Williams don't want to stay at Washington. Does he go back to Arizona where he was once committed, or does he consider, playing closer to home because he was at Basha and that's stone's throw from Tempe? So, that's the type of situation that ASU is going to be in the future quite a bit. And as long as you're open to it, and I believe that he is, I think ASU will benefit.
Now, given this new strategy and this openness and this forthrightness that we've seen from Kenny, from basically from the jump, on the flip side of things, how is this new look Sun Devil program, this approach by Kenny Dillingham, being received from the local high school community and the people that were on the wrong end of these frayed and sometimes just completely absent relationships over the last several years?
Yeah, like I said, he's in the grace period. And so, he also has the, what's that? The Garfield, or is the Bart Simpson cake meme? The "at least you tried." Like these coaches will serve up the "at least you tried" cake. Like they will appreciate your attention, and your effort, and that exists now. We've watched coach after coach come into Arizona, put in effort for like a year in this area, and be like, this part of my job sucks. And then just kind of like not continue it. And I know that Kenny Dillingham from the outside had to be looking at this situation and being like, why? Like, why not just keep the same energy year over year? But he's the type of person that's trying to think about being here for 25, 30 years. Good luck. That's almost impossible in this environment. I want that to be the case. And he's gone around and told people he thinks this will be his last head coaching job. So, I think it can, his relationship with Arizona high school coaches right now can be considered as like satisfactory. They would love, and every high school coach loves to say that they sent a kid that they can root for locally. And I think some people still have the belief that these head coaches have more involvement in high level recruiting than they actually do. If you get to a point where a kid has 4 or 5 offers, the involvement of the high school coach is at a very, very minimum level. If you get to the end of the season and a coach is making calls to like Rocky Mountain and Billings, Montana on your behalf, and Fort Lewis, to get you into an RMAC D2 school, then yes, like you're going to be able to take credit for that kid's commitment if he gets in one of those places. But when somebody goes to Arizona State and they're a multiple offer kid, it doesn't have much to do with the high school coaches at all. All you want to do is make sure they're not whining. And what you'll notice is when Herm was here and Antonio Pierce, and in the latter years of Todd Graham post Mike Norvell, somebody would complain, and then a bunch of other high school coaches would be like, here. That hasn't happened yet. That part of it has yet to happen. And so it's not so much the one person complaining you need to be worried about. It's the everybody like retweeting it and favoriting it. And thanks for saying the thing that's been on all of our minds. And I will tell you that if it's been on all of their minds, it would be a thing that I'm hearing. And it certainly would be a thing that Chili's hearing, but it's just not, that's not where it is yet. People still believe that Kenny Dillingham cares that it says Arizona on the jersey, and that he wants this to be a school that represents the community in some way. And as long as they have that belief, you're not going to see the pile-ons that were very, very common in the Herm Edwards, Todd Graham eras.
So in Kenny Dillingham has talked about, and like assistant coaches and what I've talked to, Rashad Samples and Brian Carrington, for example, have all told me that, obviously this is a relationship game. It takes time. And you talked to it as well. ASU fans should have patience, that this is going to take time to kind of undo that damage, build those relationships, strengthen those relationships over time. A couple of them have also said that, you might, the 25 class is when you might start to see some of those, some of the fruit start to kind of come to bear from, all the work that they're putting in and everything that since they've taken over a little over a year ago. Obviously there's, some very talented guys in that 2025 class in Arizona. Cooper Perry seems to be no secret that he's coveted by this Sun Devil program. How long do you think it might take? Do you think that's an accurate timeline from when ASU can become, go make that move from, not just, the best second decision and the bounce back, but being that first choice for the top local guys?
Yeah. So what you need is one, right? You need one person to say, yeah, let's do it. Let's stay home. once that happens, the ease with which you can market yourself to everybody else, it's especially in a FOMO generation where everybody is worried about what everybody else has going on. It was like this before, but now it's even crazier. And so you say, hey, I mean, Cooper Perry's going to ASU. Dude, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. I think about there's a very, very dumb movie. It's called Opportunity Knocks. It's not as good as The Devil Wears Prada, which Joe Healy still has not watched. It's a nice 7-year callback. But
the show canon runs deep.
Yes. So in this movie, Opportunity Knocks, Dana Carvey is a crook, and he sees a house with a bunch of newspapers out front. And so he just goes in, and he lives there. And then he adopts the guy's life that was in that home, who's like overseas traveling for months. And he ends up going to a job interview that this guy had scheduled that he meant to cancel, and literally becoming him. And the job that he takes on is like the war against people moving to paper towels over like bathroom blowers, right? So like that's the job he takes on. And it's a Dana Carvey movie, so they have to fit in excuses for him to do impressions. And there's a scene in this movie where he pretends to be George H.W. Bush, the first one. Not gonna do it, that George Bush. Yeah. And he pays a bunch of guys to run into a bathroom at a baseball game, I think. And at this baseball game, everybody's at the urinal, and all of a sudden there's security yelling like Secret Service, like nobody moves. So everybody's just up against the urinal. No one can look. And then he walks in, he goes into a stall, and he talks to himself as George H.W. Bush, just doing the impression. And then he comes out and he says, paper towel's bad, blower's good. And he like dries his hand in the blower, and then all the people that he paid to be security run over, and he pretends to be one of those guys too. And he's like, if it's good enough for the president, it's good enough for me. Like, and then all of a sudden everybody is excited about hand dryers, right? Electronic hand dryers, because there's enthusiasm. And it's very, very dumb thing to relate to. But that's
one of your best. Like, I mean, it took a while to get there, but you nailed the landing.
Of course it did. I am not good at being succinct, but I say all that to say this: like, enthusiasm is very, very contagious, and if you can't get somebody to commit that is a big name like a Cooper Perry, University of Arizona saw this. They got Noah Fafita, and that turned into 4 different players, all from Servite, right? It is very, very possible for this to happen in Arizona, but all it takes is one. And I think that Kenny Dillingham knew that with Deuce Robinson. And I think he took about as big of a swing at Deuce as you possibly could. Deuce was locked in at USC, and he's a dual sport star, and maybe he'll stick it out and go to the NFL or whatever. But I think that Kenny Dillingham knows who those guys are to get the rest of Arizona and the talent in Arizona to say, if it's good enough for Cooper Perry, it's good enough for me. And then just have a bunch of people jump on board. But it's always going to be a domino effect. It can't be, 5 or 6 diamonds in the rough, and then you point to it and you say, we did a good job in the state of Arizona, because that's not what Arizona is anymore. Arizona is the state that gives you 5 players on the San Francisco 49ers playing in the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. 5. Like, 8% of that roster is from Arizona. So like that is what Arizona is becoming. You need the big names, the leaders, the people that can get other people on board, maybe recruit while they're in flux, waiting to enroll, the way that Manny Wilkins did. That is what you need. And if Kenny Dillingham believes that Cooper Perry is that guy, then you got to get Cooper Perry. But the problem with the Cooper Perry is he fits in that category that Kenny Dillingham talked about of, if you're the elite, go away for a year, but come back, which is what Cole Martin just did with his 1 year at Oregon before coming to Arizona State. But once they've been removed for that 1 year, that excitement goes away. There are a lot of people that are very excited to see Cole Martin be part of Arizona State's recruiting class, but it's not going to make the high school kids stick. It's just not.
A very interesting, complex issue. I mean, we've talked about this local recruiting, the saga over multiple staffs over the life of this show. And man, it's always interesting. So it just so many layers at play here, and you guys, your team covers it so well. Ralph, for the four people listening to this who perhaps don't know where to find all your great content, where can they find all the great stuff in the coverage of not just Arizona high school football, recruiting, but of course, now branching into college football on a national level?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if people have an appetite for obscure Dana Carvey movie references on a national level. I doubt that that's the case, but if I could plug anything, um, it would be this. I write for a show, YouTube based, Unafraid show. Love it, hate it, share it with a friend. If they hate it, have them share it with a friend, and just keep hate sharing it. But it's a really cool show that gets into faith, football, food, fatherhood, and just family in general.
Guests.
And
huge guests.
Huge guests. We've had we got Greg McElroy this week. I'm really excited about that. Didn't know much about him going into it, and it was a fantastic interview. And we just came off having Dan Lanning, and he was fantastic. We had Reggie Bush on here, and that's one that I went back and watched twice just because, it doesn't get much better than that for me. And we had Josh Pate too, and he was our first guest. And for him to co-sign what we're trying to build, like, it meant the world, because I think he's really the guy right now. But Unafraid Show on YouTube is the thing that I'm pouring a bunch of energy into. Arizona Varsity is still around. If you want to support Arizona Varsity, follow my guy at Just Chili. He's the most plugged in guy in the state. Nobody cares about the welfare of high school athletes in the state of Arizona than he does. And he's like a multiple time Arizona State alum. You've had him on the show plenty. He loves the school, and he would love nothing more than, he's not a salesman, but he would love nothing more than for Kenny Dillingham to do the best job selling this school as possible, so that we can continue to cover these kids on a local basis.
Yeah, it's just absolutely indispensable content. Love Chili and everything he does. I love what you guys have built over the years of just tireless hard work, and really awesome to see new ventures going. With you and George and all the cool stuff. When you guys are talking about the rebrand, then I saw like the guests that are coming. Like, just wow. I mean, like in one, like, it's not surprising knowing that the quality of stuff that you guys put out and the work that you put behind it, but just really cool. Kind of cool to see. This is like you have Heisman winners on your show. Reggie Bush, is there a bigger name in the Pac-10 history than perhaps Reggie Bush? I don't know. It's really cool that you guys are doing that.
Question. Yeah, and and hopefully we can get back to doing some college football podcasting. But I got to tell you, I love the Pac-12. I'm a college football fan beyond the Pac-12. It's not something I'm super passionate about, and so I'm open to I'm certainly open to the idea. But it's gonna be tough. I will miss the Pac-12. Its fans, its cities, its experiences a great deal. Absolutely hate that it came to this, but just objectively speaking, the Big 12 is the cure for what ails Arizona State. It really is. It provides the biggest opportunity, the most stability, and the most enthusiasm in football, basketball, and other sports that I believe will rub off on ASU fans in a positive way.
And hopefully this 2024 schedule that we broke down earlier will be just kind of the first of many great years of Sun Devil football in the conference. A lot of new sights to see, and a lot of new opponents to fans to interact with. We'll see about all of that. So, Ralph, your 43rd appearance. That'll be the second time as a full-fledged co-host here. Always so fun. Really amazing. Of course, give him a follow at Ralph Amsden everywhere. As we close out here, I want to tell you folks about a couple of exciting things going on. Burrito Express, a longtime partner of the show. You can find out all about them at theburritoexpress.com. But this Saturday, February 3rd, they are having a grand opening of their newest location, Kyrene and Elliott, 744 West Elliott in Tempe. To be precise, the first 50 folks at the grand opening that morning will get free burritos for a year. There'll be other giveaways. Elijah Badger, Trenton and Coben Bourget will be there signing autographs and taking pictures, and a couple of ASU podcasters might be on site as well. So come drop by and say hi, check out, get a great burrito. I'm very loyal to the BSB, the red sauce as well. Ralph, you Burrito Express? I know you got your Chandler joint that you turned me on to. Really great.
I have my Chandler joint. I will tell you, I had like machaca from Burrito Express ones. This one, like, people haven't told me what the go-to is, what I should be getting. I have my staff at Burrito Express every single day. I've been there once. And it was the Alma School, and Elliott-ish location, and I had a really, really, really great experience. And this was before I knew that it was run by one of the biggest Arizona sports fans, genius marketers, sponsor of great podcasts in the history of the state of Arizona. So I will be back twice in March, I think, for a total of like 20 days.
Oh,
And I am looking forward to having it for the first time in like 8-9 years. So I just need some guidance on what to get. That's all.
I get the BSB, the Breakfast Supreme. Coben Bourget actually gave me some leveling up tips in terms of just like things to add as well. I take it with red sauce. One thing that kind of jumped out to me during media day, if we can go back a little bit, and maybe this will tie into the rivalry, a potential rivalry with Texas Tech. Jalen Conyers doesn't use salsa on his burrito. Ralph, I mean, what's up with that?
Man, I guess it depends on the type of burrito. Like, is he just want a bad burrito? Because those are you can eat those, but you
gotta have the little cup and salsa. Yeah. Oh.
With chorizo, you use the green. With shredded chicken, you use the red. With a good bean burrito, you use the traditional salsa mixed in to give it like a lighter feel. Like, come on.
Yeah, I know. Just amateur hour. I don't think that'll
Texas
fly
Tech
over.
Find out about this. Yeah. When he sees those tortillas flying through the air, he's like, "These are good just the way they are." Why are people wasting perfectly good burritos?
We have to bring this back 8 months from now. Also, absolutely, come join us. February 3rd, 744 West Elliott Road at Burrito Express. Of course, theburritoexpress.com. Get the BSB I get it with the red. It's great. Also, of course, you heard me talking about our good friends at the Good Brand. Homefieldapparel.com. Offer code SOTD23 at checkout will give you 15% off your first order. They have a great ASU collection. They're adding new schools throughout this offseason as well. Also, check out our friends at devilsdigest.com. Join the huddle, get access to great message boards, and get the inside scoop on all the information coming down. Also wanted to shout out our friends at The Spaghetti Shack, Sun Devil owned and operated, also former Sparky owned and operated. You can find out more stuff at thespaghettishack.com. Check out, grab some great Sun Devil gear at Cactus Sports, 514 South Mill Avenue. And also you can find out, see their great selection at cactussports.com. And if you're in the market for a new ride, check out Parker Jones, who's been a longtime supporter of ASU Athletics and of Speak of the Devils. Jones Auto Group. You can find out more on jonesautocenters.com. Ralph, you always end your Sun Devil Spaces on a very positive note. So would you mind giving us a sign-off in terms of kind of leave the folks after another great episode, great conversation? Let's leave everybody feeling good and grateful about where things are at this point of the year.
Sure. Let's go with Graham Rossini, 2024.